Okay, so we're live. Welcome everyone at home and welcome everyone here. It's nice to see you. Um, so I was going to share that I had downloaded a while back this video series called The Compassionate Brain. And I think Rick Hanson, who pretty sure he's one of the authors of The Buddha's Brain, which is probably on the shelf over there, which explains the neurobiology or what it does to our brain and body when we meditate or have a sustained mindfulness practice. And he had there are 8 sessions, and they're interviewing experts like Daniel Siegel and Tara Brach, and they're talking about what we know about how compassion practices, self-compassion practices, and meditation impact the brain and affect our well-being. And they want everyone and anyone who is interested to be able to access this. So it is free. And I wanted to just remember to mention that you can go on to Sounds True, which is a clearinghouse like store, online bookstore, where you can get recordings and books and materials that are related to health, wellness, and spirituality. So I'm pretty sure it's just soundstrue.com, and you can, and I'll post I think I posted the link to that on the Facebook page yesterday maybe. So you basically just go there and it's free and you can just download and listen to. And I was listening just on a whim. I was like, oh, I downloaded this thing and I haven't listened yet. And I listened to number 8, which was like the takeaways. They were kind of giving a synopsis of the whole thing. I'm like, wow, I missed a lot. There was a lot there. Um, and one of the things I was reminded of that I keep learning about in my training and my research is about the insula, this part of the brain that is developed by meditation and mindfulness practices. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for sensing ourselves, for being able to sense our interior. And the thing I learned that was new from that synopsis of the Compassionate Brain video series was that that ability to sense ourselves also means we have greater access to sense others. And that's what relationship is all about, right? When we can be attuned, when we can sense the other and what's going on with them. And we can more easily and more accurately do that if we can sense ourselves in the first place. Because if we can't sense ourselves, it's very difficult to attune and get a sense of what's going on with anybody else. It can be very frustrating to be in a relationship if we don't have a good sense of ourselves. So this is just another reason or a motivation, if you will, for mindfulness and meditation practices. One of the things that we learn how to do in this process of sensing ourselves is responding, right? So if we can sense ourselves, then we can tell if we're in distress. We can tell if we're suffering or if we need something, right? We might not immediately know what it is we need, but if we can at least clue in or tune in, right, and hear the distress that's there, like, oh, some part of me, like my heart hurts, right, or my jaw feels tight, or oh, my arms and legs feel like they're ready to go, they're ready to do something, right, or I feel like I could run from the room right now. That those things, being able to sense into our interior, gives us more access to what's going on, and then more ability to appropriately respond. And the reason that sensing ourselves, in part, makes it, what would you like? Oh, yeah. Makes it easier to sense others is because part of the way that we sense others is through what's called mirror neurons. And Daniel Siegel is one of the people that talks about and writes about mirror neurons, that there are these parts of our brain that simulate the states of other people just by looking at other people below our conscious awareness. We're actually taking in data from their facial expressions, their tone of voice, right? What they're doing with their hands and arms. And we're reading for whether there's threat there, right? Are they upset? Are they a threat to us? And you can see the survival function of that. And, just from purely from a self-protective standpoint, but also from an ability to relate to other people, right? If we can notice that what's happening in somebody's appearance and go, oh, wow, they look upset, they look nervous, or they look scared, or they, right? Then we're more likely to be able to reach out and have an accurate or compassionate response, versus if we're not very self-aware and someone gets upset, we might have a response that's very knee-jerk or automatic, like anger. We might respond to somebody's need actually with anger, right? Which does, on the face of it, it doesn't make sense, but in the moment, that could be what is arising. And if we don't have good awareness of ourselves, like, oh, wow, actually what I'm picking up is fear. And then I know that what happens with fear is there's an automatic, right? Protect myself. Anger is the energy to protect ourselves, right? So this building our self-awareness has all kinds of applications and all kinds of helpfulness. We can see our own patterns of response, our unhelpful patterns of response. We can see our addictions. We can see the places that we might be numbing out or not really being able to see, in the past, how we might contribute to a problem that we're having. And all along we thought it was that person, right? Yeah. So what kinds of practices assist us in developing this part of the brain? Well, even simply looking. So if you outside, or even in here, if you have an intense feeling, right? It doesn't matter what it is. So it can be boredom, it can be aversion, like, right, to some thought or feeling or idea, or it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be grief, whatever pops up. If you can, at that moment, be curious about what's happening, because usually the first response is, ugh, I don't like that, I want to get rid of it. Right? Whatever the negative emotion or sensation or feeling, the negative experiences. We're like, oh, give me the fun, the happy, all the stuff that feels good, but everything else can keep that. I don't really want to go there. And we're socialized that way. A great many of us are socialized to be averse to our negative experiences. And the thing is that what happens when we push away our negative experiences, by and large, they don't go away. They just kind of pile up, they stack up, and they wait. Right? And what do you think they wait for?
The worst possible time to come out.
Right. An opportunity. They wait for an opportunity. So, if my mom pisses me off, then, right, the full force of that comes surging. And then if I'm not aware, I might think all of that is about this little argument that I'm having with her. Right. And it causes a lot of damage, right? We either the other person, when that surge happens, either the other person takes the brunt of it and gets beat up, or we beat ourselves up for feeling that intensity. Maybe we sense something about, oh, there's a mismatch there. I shouldn't be that upset, right? Or whatever the rules are in our head about shouldn't be mad at mom, or it's not okay to be mad at mom, not okay to be mad, right? So that's also not helpful, right? So if the surge comes and then we beat it back, right? Not allowed. That's not okay. Not allowed. Then it just keeps getting, right? Just piles up. Just keeps hanging out there waiting. And one of the reasons it's important to be able to recognize what's happening is so that we can discharge it in that moment. So we can work it through in that moment and avoid the pileup, because the pileup takes up energy. Right? So who here has plenty of energy for everything and anything they want to do all the time? Right? We use up our reserve just to hold all the built up stuff in place for our nervous system to contain all that charge. That's the word that we use in somatic work. It's charge. Right? So it makes you think about like electricity, or right? There's power there, there's energy there. So if it's not going to be allowed to express, some kind of energy has to like hold it there, keep it in place. And if we are really good at it and we've been doing it for a really long time, we might not even realize how much of our reserve is getting used to hold that in place. Right. So to free up the energy for life, we can start to become aware and try to appropriately attend to whatever arises in the moment. But the very first step is always looking. We always want to jump to, what do I do? How do I fix this or change this? But the very first step is always looking. We have to look first. And the greater the urgency to do something, the more important it is to wait and just look. Doesn't matter what it is.
Once it's out there, it doesn't come back.
And yeah, sometimes it can be hard to repair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So some of the ways that we can start to practice this, I used to, and I still sometimes do, give a really simple exercise. It's a self-compassion practice for people. I tell them to go home and notice what happens every time you need to do one of the following. When you need to eat, when you need to sleep, when you need to rest. Rest is different than sleep, even though sometimes we don't get that. When you need to go to the bathroom, right? Or when you're in pain. Doesn't matter what kind of pain. See if you can notice what's the immediate, the automatic response to any of those things happening. Is it delay? Right? It has to wait until, right? It's convenient for me. Or is it met with aggression? Like, damn it, I wish I didn't have to sleep. I don't want to have to eat. I don't want to be bothered with going to the bathroom. This pain thing, right? right? Aggression toward our experience? Or is it met with just flat out ignore, right? A wall of, I'm just not even going to respond to that. I'm not even going to recognize that it exists, right? And that's harder to catch if we have a habit of discounting, right? Or minimizing our experience. So it can be a very interesting experiment. There's the instruction in that exercise is not to change anything. It's just the very first step is just looking so you can see what happens. You might think that you're responding appropriately to your needs, but then when you look and you see, okay, when I first get the urge for hunger, or that I need to go to the bathroom, or that I feel sleepy, right? It's like 10:04, right, at night. What's the first response, right? Is there a delay? And how much of a delay, right? And maybe what thoughts go along with the delaying meeting needs, or what kinds of memories or associations, right? You might be able to make connections to, oh, this pattern's been in play for a long time. I was taught to deny or delay my needs way back, right? And then we might even see, this isn't even a conscious pattern, right? This is just something I've been doing because it's what I've always done. And then after that looking, when awareness starts to come on board and some curiosity about, oh, well, why is that happening? What's up with delaying or not letting myself go to the bathroom or not letting myself eat or sit down for 2 minutes, right? Doing housework and I start to feel the fatigue and I know I'd like to sit down, but I don't. Just gotta finish, right? What's that about? If we can be curious about that, what's the belief there? Is it I can't be trusted to finish the task if I let myself sit down?
That's what I was thinking.
Right. Or is there some sort of harshness there that won't admit, oh, I'm trying to do too much in one day? Right? Maybe what my body is telling me is 6 hours worth of housework is too much for one day. I actually need to spread it out. Who knows? Right? Everybody's going to be different. You're going to investigate for yourselves if you have any interest. Another way that you can start to build the capacity for looking is through what is usually prescribed as the initial experience of meditation, which is just focusing on the breath. And then every time your mind wanders, you just go, oh yeah, I'm focusing on the breath. And then you come back, right? You just keep coming back, but you notice, right? You have to have some awareness of your attention or your internal experience to be able to do that. You have to notice that your mind has wandered and then very intentionally bring it back to the object of focus. And in that way, they say attention is kind of like a muscle. You know, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. And so your sustained attention ability can grow with this practice of training to come back over and over. Oh, my mind has wandered, like the dog wanders off. Oh, come back. Right? And the way that we do that is very, very important. The way that we come back when the mind has wandered is friendly, non-judgmental, curious. Right? Oh, wow, look at that. Right? Oh, keeps going to like boredom or restlessness or that thing I said to so-and-so yesterday, or they said to me. Right? Oh, look at that. And being curious about what happens if I come back. Can I shift my attention back to breath? And what happens if I do that? 2 seconds later, am I off on that same topic again? And can I stay curious and non-judgmental? Not like, this, why can't I stay focused on my breath? Right? What if the practice is actually just the coming back over and over again, and the way that we come back? That would be very, very enlightening. Tell us a thing or two about how we treat ourselves when things don't go well, when things don't go the way we'd like, or when we make a mistake, right? When we don't meet our own expectations, maybe. What happens? Do we crack the whip and get really harsh on ourselves? Or do we go, let me start fresh right now. It's a brand new moment. Let me start again right now. Right? Let go of everything that came before, and I'm just starting again right now, brand new. And not beating ourselves up if we find that we can't do that easily. Because we don't want to judge ourselves for judging ourselves. Right? So the first step is just to notice. If we find that we're judging ourselves, we notice and we do the best we can. How could I be a little more kind? Could I, if I can't be compassionate toward myself and I find I'm judging myself or being harsh, could I be neutral? Right? What would the middle be? Just to get a tiny bit of movement in that habit. So what would it be like if I were neither kind nor cruel in this situation? What would be a completely neutral way to relate to this experience? Right? And, sometimes we need to seek out, if we don't know what neutral or kind is as a response to something we're experiencing, we might want to ask people that we trust for help and examples of what that looks like. Very frequently, though, we can get a good idea of what that should sound like or what that would be by just noticing how we would advise someone else. Right? If someone else came to us with this question about, well, what's the kindest way to relate to myself with this problem or this thing that I'm struggling around? We can pretty easily point out to somebody else when they're picking on themselves too much and how they might be, right? As an outsider, as an objective observer, we can pretty easily say, oh, well, stop doing that. Stop beating yourself up. Stop being mean to yourself. Right? It's a little harder to do for ourselves, partly because it's been with us for so long. The ones that are the most ingrained habits, they've been there a long time. So they're harder to spot. It's harder to figure out what we ought to do instead, what's more helpful. So what's happening is, just as an exercise in practice, notice what's happening for you as I name or describe this process of getting in touch with your interior. Right? As kindly as you can and with as much curiosity as you can, just notice how this idea or the ideas I've been describing hit you, how they strike you. Is it neutral? Or does something inside kind of go, right? Or is there an attraction? Does something inside feel pulled toward exploring that? Or feel like this idea resonates or has some traction for you? Like, oh, maybe this is something that, this is a place I could start. You know? And it's something that you can do that's not just here once a week. It's something that you can do outside of here any old time. You know, during the times when you're too tired or busy, you know, of course, it's not going to happen. But there may be moments where you realize, I have enough capacity in this moment to check and see. For the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to try to be aware of my needs and what might arise so I can see what's my habitual response. What's my automatic response to myself? Because we can't sustain it. You know, it's not going to be like 24/7 every moment of the day that we can sustain that kind of attention. But it doesn't require every waking moment sustained attention to it to catch the pattern, to catch it when it pops up. And there are lots of other ways that you can also build this part of the brain. Exercises that that sort of require you to be connected to your insides, to sense yourself, like yoga or dance or martial arts, right? Those kinds of activities require us to, it forces our self-awareness to bump up a level, right? We got to feel ourselves in space, in time, put our bodies in a certain position, right? Feel ourselves. Anything that requires balancing, you know, any activity really, we can tie to our internal state and check and see, oh, what's going on inside while I'm doing this, right? Do I feel more connected, less connected, comfortable, uncomfortable, right? What inside registers comfort or discomfort, even if it's just vague. We might not have a real specific idea of what inside is letting us know, but we can touch into, oh, something is letting me know I don't like this, or I do like this, or don't have an opinion yet, not sure. Okay. Any questions about, because sometimes it can be difficult to understand this idea of felt sense or sensing ourselves. It's not something we're taught to do. Information's not really just floating around out there anymore. We all tend to consider our consciousness or awareness as existing from here up, kind of disconnected from our bodies. Right? In school, they just want this part of us. They don't want the rest of the body. I heard this, I mean, it's great they did the research, but this awful statistic today about research about ADHD, and that in any given class, like grade level class, the kids in the class that are more likely to be diagnosed as ADHD are the youngest. Yeah. So if you're just comparatively assessing kids in any classroom, the younger ones are going to be the one with the lower, right, impulse control.
What is
Sorry?
What is that? Did
Well,
they say it?
well, we develop the control
Mhm.
as we age, but kids are being assessed in relative terms for their behavior,
Mhm.
not in objective terms,
I see.
right? Because teacher's trying to manage a
Mhm.
class. Right? I forget what connection I was trying to make there. Um, right before that, I was talking about
This and this.
oh yeah, right. So in school, we're conditioned, we're socialized to ignore this. It's not even that. It's not even that from here down isn't paid attention to. We're told to suppress everything below the neck, right? Sit still, quit fidgeting, sit down, stay there,
Stop crying.
stay in line,
Mhm.
straight line, get in line, get a hold of yourself.
I was in a restaurant,
Right.
saw a little kid fall off the stool. We were sitting having dinner.
Mhm.
Dad picked him up by his arm and grabbed him and said, "Don't you cry." I
Ah.
the kid just fell on the concrete.
Right. So
Mhm.
you just illustrated
Mhm.
perfectly the way that we are socialized. Right? Suck it up, suppress it, walk it off, get over it. Right? Quit your crying. Yeah. And we don't realize it. And by and large, the people that are saying those things to us had it said to them. And so their tolerance to be with their experience is limited. And then that is passed on to us. And I think that one of the greatest gifts that we can give the world is being able to fully express, be a fully embodied human being so that people can see, right? Because when you see someone move through the world in that embodied way, you can feel it, right? There's something that it feels like, oh, you're attracted to that in another person, right? Because if they feel okay being themselves, chances are they're going to be okay letting other people be themselves too. So that's the gift that we give to others. When we can be with our experience, then we can be with pretty much any experience. Right? We don't have to run away. We don't have to fix other people's problems, right? Or try to, right? Whatever this person is experiencing, I can't, right? Better cheer them up really fast, right? Entertain them or fix their problem or tell them to look on the bright side, how it could be worse, right? All incredibly invalidating things that we do to each other all the time. Right? But if we can just be with, I mean, imagine when you're in your darkest hour, the value of someone who can be there and not freak out, right? And not try to change you or tell you shouldn't feel that way or rush you, hurry you up, or tell you sunny, positive, right? Try to get you to laugh, right? Tell jokes, right? How validating that is when someone can give us that kind of gift of just being able to be there with us, right? Because in that moment, what we feel, the most healing thing of all, I am not alone. Right? If somebody rejects our experience or they can't tolerate our experience, we feel abandoned, we feel alone. We can feel it, we can tell if somebody can't stand it, right? They can't stand for us to be less than laughing, happy. So, on that note, we're going to take a break. Let you stretch your legs. If you have any questions, let me know. And then in 5 minutes, we'll start our guided meditation. Sound good? Okay.
Did you ever see Monty Python's The Life of Brian?
Yes.
When they're hanging on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
Always look on the bright side of life.
I know.
You said that, when you're supposed to be cheerful and you're all hanging there. All their feet are moving.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you start to feel something,
Yeah.
then that's when you get curious.
Mhm.
And is being curious the same as look at it, like what you were saying?
Well, I think being curious is the energy that drives the looking. Right? We can't be afraid and curious at the same time. So if we're afraid, we're going to be more likely to look away or push away that experience. Try to get rid of that experience. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then how do you work through it?
If you're afraid instead of curious?
Well, no. What if you see it and
Right.
you think, now what?
Right.
And
So
you try to remember all the breathing and
right. So in the mindful path, well, they're in a couple different places. There's a sort of outline of the process, and people always want to know, like, what do I do? And I always encourage people to just stay with the looking and delay moving on to the what to do part, because the habit is so strong. We don't realize how strong the habit of getting rid of our experiences. And the Dalai Lama and all the spiritual teachers all say somewhere in the books and teachings that anytime we try to get rid of our experience, that's self-violence. So the looking with curiosity, I think, helps set us up to be in a more self-compassionate place, right? Because curiosity is like that's somebody holding your hand. That's like the friend who's not trying to change you or fix you in any way. They're just curious, just listening.
So what if you just start noticing things? That's how you get rid of it, is by, you know what I mean? Like experiencing it, acknowledging it, and then it can pass.
Some things, yes, some things do move through automatically by themselves with looking. They do. So we can use inquiry, meditation, as an inquiry into these kinds of things, as a looking and being with. So if I notice, for instance, the physical sensations that go along with some uncomfortable emotion, and then I notice, oh, there's these images, right? Flashbacks of some event from the past, or maybe even images that don't seem related, or I don't have a story attached to, or I notice beliefs, thoughts that go along with the emotion or go along with the feeling. So I'll give you an example. I was at the grocery store yesterday, and I made a quick trip in, and I had gotten some kind of heavy things, and I went through the self checkout, and I had finished paying, and I always bring my own bags, but then when you try to put your bags on it just messes everything up. So I put my bags on the floor, and then after I'm all checked out, I pack my bags, right? I take the stuff off yeah. And so I'm putting the things in my bags, and I hear a big thunk, and I kind of get up and I look around, and there's a guy. I haven't left the checkout, and he's already starting doing his thing. And I noticed really a whole bunch of constriction here. I noticed I wanted to get out of there like immediately. I noticed anger. I noticed the thought of, this is why I don't like to shop on the weekends, like at the busy times. I noticed just like really wanting to get the heck out of there. And so as I'm driving home, and it wasn't a very long drive home, I tried to be really curious about this. And it's taken some practice to get to this point, to be able to be curious, because when the anger pops up or the intense emotion pops up, it's easy to go with it, right? Like, why is he doing that? Or, he's a jerk, right? That's where my mind wanted to go. He's an insensitive jerk, or he's in a hurry, or has no sense of boundaries or space, or, right? And then helplessness. I can't change it. I have no recourse. I can't defend myself. I'm victimized, right? Because this is something I just have to put up with anytime I go somewhere. If it's crowded, this is what people are like, right? So I knew I'd been triggered. I wasn't sure what was happening. But as I was driving home and being curious about what was going on, I was feeling into the sensations in my body. And with that curiosity, spontaneously, the thoughts arose about, where might that come from? Right? Where might I be? Why might I be? What might I have learned that would precipitate or underlie such an intense reaction? Well, I realized right away, certainly that kind of lack of impulse control would not have been tolerated when I was a kid, right? And there is an expectation that people should not behave that way, right? Not be pushy or rude. And also, at the same time, a conflicting expectation that people are basically unfriendly at least, and at worst dangerous, right? That you always have to be protecting yourself, defending yourself, looking out for yourself, because people just do this kind of stuff, right? People, generalizing people. And then when I got home, I let my husband know what happened, and he kind of said, well, yeah, like me too, that kind of behavior. And so then I was using what I learned from the Brene Brown book, The Rising Strong. What story am I making up about this? That he's just a rude, angry, impatient old man. And then I asked, what's the most generous assumption that I could make about what happened? Well, two things: that I have conditioning that tells me that people are a threat, for one thing, and that people are supposed to behave a certain way. They're supposed to read everybody's mind about what's okay and what's not okay. Right? And that he might just be completely clueless. Right? Or he has a trauma history. Right? It might be just all about him, what he wants, what he needs, right? If he feels somehow victimized by the world, then, right, it's just, he's trying to just help me get out of his way so he can get what he needs. And it was so interesting, I didn't solve that problem. I didn't solve it. I just said out loud after I got home, oh, I wonder about this intensity. And I had somebody there to validate it and not tell me I shouldn't feel that way. And I said out loud, oh, probably that harshness on my part, that lack of tolerance, comes from the lack of tolerance that I experienced growing up. And that I can't really generalize what happened there to the rest of the world, to the other 6 billion or so humans on the earth. I can't say his behavior represents everybody else. And I can't even say it represents everybody on a busy day at the grocery store. Right? It might represent a few more than just one. And somehow that helped support a shift. Right? I hadn't solved anything. But suddenly it didn't make quite as much sense that the only option is to avoid the store on the weekends, or that he was just a big old jerk. Right? I have more options, more space, more freedom there. And I don't know if you can get a sense of that just from my description of it, but something moved through, right? So now when I recall the experience, the charge, the energy that's there, that if I hadn't worked through that, I could just think about it and be like, just like that. But now I can't generate that charge. Right? So I allowed that experience to move through. I connected dots, right? I felt the physical experience of it. I connected all the dots, and I was able to stay curious even while I had the feeling in my body that I needed to get the hell out of there. Right? So now, for some reason, right, allowing myself to move through that process, it doesn't have the same charge. It doesn't have the same intensity. And that might not be what my mind said in advance. If you had asked me, that wouldn't have been what my mind told you the solution was. Right? My mind might have said, I need a solution that's something like, how can I never experience this again? Or how can I punish him? Right? How can I prevent this from ever happening again in the future? Those are the solutions that my mind, from the hooked place, the triggered place, would have said, those are the solutions. I could have never imagined that this would be the solution, just from looking. Right? Just from looking, sustained looking. So I hope that gives you a tiny, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I like using myself as an example because I like to disabuse people of the notion that I've got it figured out. I just think that my work, my ongoing work, and devotion to my practice has helped me reach a point now where I can stay curious. It's immensely helpful to be able to stay curious. And I credit my meditation practice, my self-inquiry practice, and my therapy work, my somatic experiencing work for being able to do that. Yeah. Okay. So, any more questions before we set up? So let's get the room the way you guys like it for meditation. And we can shorten it today if you guys want. You want to do just 20?
Can we draw this one and turn it on?
Sure. This one right here off? Okay. So just a little bit of instruction. What's that?
That one doesn't go.
Oh, sorry.
But this one's
Well,
on. That's what this one's on. This is good. How about this? Well, that's good.
okay, so and I'm going to let people at home, instead of looking at me today, I'm going to let them look at the candle. So the only thing that you need to do, your only job is, well, that's a little bit odd. Your only job in this meditation is to notice. Okay? Nothing else that you need to do. Anytime your mind wanders or you get carried away with thought or emotion or something else, all you do as soon as you notice that happened is you come back and you go, oh yeah, all I was doing is just noticing what's happening right here in the present moment. That's it. Okay. So you just follow along as best you can with what I'm saying. If something gets evoked for you that feels too intense or uncomfortable, you can always just bring your focus to the candle or to some object in the room that's external to you. So something not inside of you. And that usually diffuses the intensity. Okay. And you can also check for a place in your body that feels really neutral. Feet are often a pretty safe place to set our attention when there's intensity in other parts of the body. So we'll start with scanning the body. And as we usually do, we'll just start with noticing, and you can have eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. Starting with the top of our heads, just turning attention to noticing the top of our heads and whatever sensations might be there. Some things you could find would be tingling, tension, coolness or warmth. Sometimes pressure or weight. And there could be nothing at all. So all you're doing is noticing that, whatever you find in terms of sensation at the top of your head. And then gently preparing to shift your attention as you notice your face. And just noticing what kinds of sensations that might be there in the face. tension around the eyes or the jaw. You can imagine that your eyes sinking back in their sockets, or letting your tongue go completely limp in the bottom of your mouth as a way of releasing whatever tension you might find in your face. And then preparing to shift your attention again around to the sides of your head, and just notice anything that you find there, whether there's tension or tingling or heaviness or whatever you might find. And you can experiment with imagining letting your ears drop slightly and just see what happens after that. What's the feeling of that? And then preparing to shift your attention again, leaving whatever sensations were there on the sides of your head right where you found them, and sliding your attention around to the back of your head and the back of your neck, being as friendly as you can, remembering your only job is to notice whatever you find there. And if you experience tension or something like it, or discomfort in the back of the head or neck, you can make a request, a silent request for some relaxation in that area. And see if you can open to receive whatever happens after you make that request. And then preparing to shift your attention again gently in order to scan your arms all the way from your neck to your fingertips, starting first with your left arm, scanning from your neck across the top of your left shoulder, pausing at the shoulder joint, and scanning down your upper arm, pausing at the left elbow, scanning the left forearm, pausing at your wrist, and then scanning all the way to the fingertips. And then coming back up and starting on the right side of your neck, scanning across the top of your shoulder, pausing at the right shoulder joint, scanning down your upper arm, pausing at the right elbow, scanning the right forearm, pausing at the wrist, and then scanning the entire length of your right hand, all the way to the fingertips. And then let yourself notice or feel both arms at the same time if you can. And then prepare to release your arms and shoulders from your attention as you notice the center of your body, the core of your body, from your throat all the way down to where you're seated in the chair. First, scanning down the front side. So gently, curiously noticing throat, and then the heart area or upper chest. And then the diaphragm, or that space between chest and belly. And then noticing the belly. And then further down into lower abdomen. And then starting on the back side, shift your attention to notice upper back, an area between the shoulder blades, and then moving down and noticing the mid back, scanning down further, noticing lower back, and if there are any areas of tension or discomfort, either on the front or the back of your body, you could take a moment to imagine breathing in and out of that area, almost like it's another set of lungs. Breathing in, breathing out from that spot. And just noticing what happens. Just seeing what happens next. And then gently preparing to shift your attention to scan your legs as we finish this body scan. So noticing your legs all the way up to where you're seated in the chair, your bottom in the chair. Feeling your hips and hip joints. And then scanning your upper legs, perhaps noticing first left and then right upper leg. And then noticing the knees, left and right knee joints. And then scanning down further, noticing your lower legs, shins and calves. Noticing ankles, heels. Scanning the lengths of your feet all the way to the tips of your toes. And then seeing if you can feel left leg first, from top to bottom. And then right leg, top to bottom. And then both legs at the same time. And then gently preparing again to let attention shift, this time to slowly rise to meet the place where it seems like breathing is happening. Letting your attention find the place where breathing in and breathing out seem to be happening. And where do they seem to be happening most strongly? Perhaps at the nose, or the rising and falling of chest and belly, or movement of air at the throat. And perhaps taking a moment to notice the pause, the space at the end of your out breath, right? There's a little space where no breathing is happening. There's a pause after you exhale. Just resting there for a moment. And then, if you feel like it, alongside your breath, you can introduce this question into your space. You can ask, what happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? What would the experience of that be? What would that be like? Even if my mind wanders, even if I feel restless or bored or sleepy, what if I wasn't fighting that? What if everything in this moment was allowed to be exactly as it is? What if I thought everything I was experiencing in this moment was just fine, exactly as it is, and however I experience it is also fine? So even if I feel judgmental or discouraged or restless or irritated with what I'm experiencing, even that is okay. I'm not in conflict with anything in this moment. What would that be like? What if everything in my experience is allowed? What if I am not trying to meditate well or to get anything right? What if I let go of the controller just for a moment even? What if I even let go of the meditator, the one who's trying to get it right, who has heard about what meditation is supposed to be like. What if I let go even of that? And you can introduce this question as often as you like, or anytime your mind wanders and you notice it has wandered, you can ask, what happens if I allow everything to be as it is in this moment? Or you can keep checking. Am I really allowing everything to be as it is? Truly and deeply allowing everything to be as it is in this moment. And then after you ask the question, you're just checking. So now what's the experience of that? And perhaps you might find silence or space or relaxation. And just take another minute or so to savor that space or silence or peace. And noticing that you didn't have to do anything to get to this place. Actually, all you needed to do was nothing. And as you start to feel ready to reach the end of your meditation, you can send some energy into your arms and legs and offer some gentle movement to fingers and toes, taking as much time as you need to transition from your meditation space. And the bells will sound. It was so nice to spend time with you all this evening. I really appreciate your honest inquiry, your earnest inquiry. Namaste.
Namaste.